In the vibrant city of Ibadan, where tradition holds sway over many aspects of life, Adejoke's world had been upended. She had returned to her family home after discovering she was pregnant, abandoned by the man she had loved, Segun. The weight of her circumstances bore down on her, and the respect she once enjoyed in her community was slipping away. But despite the shame and isolation, Adejoke refused to be broken. She was determined to face the challenges ahead with strength and dignity for the sake of her unborn child. The story picks up from where part 1 ended. Adejoke had returned to her family home in Ibadan, her heart heavy with the knowledge that she had disappointed her family. The tension in the house was palpable. Her father, Baba Adewale, while supportive, was distant, struggling with the knowledge that his beloved daughter's future was now uncertain. Iya Alaje, her mother, was still reeling from the shock of Adejoke's pregnancy. Days turned into weeks, and the reality of Adejoke's situation became impossible to ignore. The once vibrant and confident young woman was now a shadow of her former self, burdened by guilt and shame. Yet she knew she couldn't afford to wallow in despair. There was a new life growing inside her, a life that depended on her. One evening, as the family sat down to dinner, the silence was deafening. The usual lively conversations had been replaced by quiet tension. It was Baba Adewale who finally broke the silence. Baba Adewale's voice was calm but firm as he said, "Adejoke, we cannot change what has happened, but we must now think of the future. You are still our daughter, and we will support you, but you must be strong. The road ahead will not be easy." Adejoke nodded, her voice barely above a whisper as she replied, "Thank you, Papa. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm determined to do right by my child." Iya Alaje, who had been silent throughout the meal, finally spoke, her voice tinged with sorrow. Iya Alaje's voice was soft as she said, "Adejoke, I wanted so much more for you, but what's done is done. We must find a way to move forward, as a family." The words, though spoken with love, cut deep into Adejoke's heart. She had always wanted to make her parents proud, but now she had to live with the reality that she had let them down. One day, as Adejoke walked through the market, her head held high despite the stares, she overheard a group of women gossiping about her. Among them was Alhaja, a powerful and influential figure in the community. Alhaja had never liked Adejoke, and now she saw an opportunity to publicly shame her. Alhaja's voice was filled with contempt as she said, "Look at her, walking around as if she's done nothing wrong, carrying a child out of wedlock. She has brought shame to her family." Adejoke's heart pounded in her chest, but she refused to let fear take over. She continued walking, determined not to give them the satisfaction of seeing her falter. But the words cut deep. She had known this day would come, but that didn't make it any easier to bear. The community that had once been her support system had now turned its back on her. That evening, as Adejoke returned home, she found her mother waiting for her. Iya Alaje's face was etched with worry. Iya Alaje's voice was heavy with concern as she asked, "Adejoke, are you all right? The women in the market, they were talking about you again." Adejoke nodded, her voice calm but resolute as she replied, "I know, Mama. But I won't let their words break me. I have to be strong for my child." Iya Alaje sighed, her heart aching for her daughter. She knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew that Adejoke was stronger than anyone gave her credit for. As Adejoke's pregnancy progressed, the situation at home became increasingly strained. Her father, Baba Adewale, tried his best to support her, but the atmosphere was tense. Iya Alaje, though no longer angry, was still deeply hurt. The once warm and loving home had become a place of silent discomfort. Adejoke knew that staying in her family's home was becoming more difficult for everyone involved. She could see the strain her presence was putting on her parents, and she didn't want to be a burden. She began to consider her options, knowing that she needed to take control of her life for the sake of her child. One day, while sitting with her father in the small garden behind their house, Adejoke made a decision. Adejoke's voice was filled with determination as she said, "Papa, I've been thinking. I know things have been difficult since I came back, and I don't want to make things harder for you and Mama. I think it's time for me to find a place of my own." Baba Adewale looked at his daughter, a mixture of pride and sadness in his eyes. Baba Adewale's voice was gentle as he replied, "Adejoke, you are always welcome here. But if you feel that you need to stand on your own, I will support your decision. Just know that you are not alone. We will always be here for you." Adejoke nodded, feeling a surge of resolve. She knew that moving out was the right thing to do, for herself, for her child, and for her family. With the little savings she had left from her time at university, Adejoke began looking for a small apartment. It wasn't easy, but eventually she found a modest one-room space in a quiet part of the city. It wasn't much, but it was a place where she could start over and prepare for the arrival of her child. With her new living situation came new challenges. Adejoke was determined to finish her degree and provide a future for her child, but she needed a source of income to support herself in the meantime. Her dreams of becoming a lawyer were still alive, but they had been temporarily put on hold. Adejoke remembered the market, the place where she had once felt at home, surrounded by the bustling life of Ibadan. She decided to return to the market, not as a shopper, but as a vendor. It was a difficult decision, one that was tinged with a sense of defeat. But Adejoke was practical. She needed to make a living, and the market was a place she knew well. She used what little money she had left to buy some basic goods, fabrics, spices, and small household items to sell at a stall in the market. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and it gave her a sense of independence. The first few weeks were tough. The same people who had once welcomed her with open arms now looked at her with pity or disdain. The whispers followed her as she set up her stall each morning, and the cold stares of the market women were hard to ignore. But Adejoke refused to let their judgment break her spirit. Each day she woke up early, prepared her goods, and went to the market to sell. It was exhausting, and the physical demands of pregnancy made it even more challenging, but Adejoke was determined. She would not let her circumstances define her. One afternoon, as Adejoke was returning to her apartment after a long day at the market, she was surprised to find her younger brother, Tunde, waiting for her at the entrance. Tunde had always been her closest sibling, and seeing him brought a mixture of relief and anxiety. Tunde's voice was filled with concern as he said, "Adejoke, I've been worried about you. I had to come and see how you're doing." Adejoke smiled, though she could feel the tears welling up. "I'm managing, Tunde. It's not easy, but I'm doing what I can." Tunde looked around at the small apartment, noting the modest furnishings and the signs of Adejoke's hard work. His voice softened as he said, "You shouldn't have to do this alone, sister. I wish there was more I could do to help." Adejoke shook her head, her voice firm but grateful. "You're here now, Tunde, and that means a lot to me. I have to be strong, for myself and for my child. But knowing that I have your support makes it a little easier." Tunde reached out and took his sister's hand, squeezing it gently. "We're family, Adejoke, and no matter what, we'll get through this together." One evening, as Adejoke sat alone in her small room, Adetola came to visit. Seeing the worry on her friend's face, Adetola sat down beside her and took her hand. Adetola's voice was soft and comforting as she said, "Adejoke, "You're not alone in this. I'm here for you, and together, we'll find a way through this." Adejoke looked at her friend, grateful for her unwavering support. Her voice was filled with gratitude as she replied, "I don't know what I would do without you, Adetola, but I'm scared. How will I raise this child alone?" Adetola smiled, squeezing her hand as she said, "You are one of the strongest people I know, Adejoke, and you won't be alone. We'll find a way. The community may judge you, but I won't let them break you." Adejoke nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. She would face whatever challenges came her way, but she wouldn't do it alone. Despite the hardships, Adejoke began to find a rhythm in her new life. The market, once a place of silent condemnation, became a source of strength. She learned to navigate the complex social dynamics, earning the respect of some of the more experienced vendors who admired her resilience. One day, as she was closing up her stall, one of the older women in the market, Mama Tunde, approached her. Mama Tunde had always been a stern woman, known for her no-nonsense attitude, but today, there was something different in her eyes, a hint of respect. Mama Tunde's voice was gruff but warm as she said, "Adejoke, I've been watching you. You're a strong woman. It's not easy to do what you're doing. Keep your head up." Adejoke was taken aback by the unexpected kindness, but she smiled, feeling a small sense of validation. Her voice was filled with gratitude as she replied, "Thank you, Mama Tunde. That means a lot." It was a small moment, but it marked a turning point for Adejoke. She began to realize that she didn't need the approval of everyone around her. She was building a life for herself and her child, and that was what mattered most. The day of Adejoke's delivery arrived sooner than expected. In the middle of the night, she woke up with sharp pains, realizing that her time had come. Alone and afraid, she called out for help, and to her surprise, her neighbors, who had once shunned her, came rushing to her aid. Adetola, who had been keeping a close eye on her, was the first to arrive. She quickly organized the other women in the compound, and together they prepared for the birth. As the night wore on, the women worked tirelessly to help Adejoke through her labor. Hours later, as the sun began to rise, the cries of a newborn filled the room. Adejoke held her baby girl in her arms, tears of joy streaming down her face. Despite all the challenges, she had brought new life into the world, and the sight of her daughter filled her with a sense of purpose and strength. The women who had helped her looked on with smiles, their earlier judgment replaced by admiration for Adejoke's resilience. Adetola's voice was filled with pride as she said, "She's beautiful, Adejoke. You've done it." Adejoke looked up at her friend, her heart filled with gratitude. Her voice was soft as she replied, "I couldn't have done it without you, Adetola. Thank you." In the days that followed, word of Adejoke's strength during childbirth spread throughout the community. The same people who had once judged her began to see her in a new light. They realized that Adejoke was not just a woman who had made a mistake. She was a mother who had faced adversity with courage and determination. Even Alhaja, who had been the most vocal critic, couldn't help but acknowledge Adejoke's strength. She approached Adejoke in the market one day, her tone softer than before. Alhaja's voice was filled with a grudging respect as she said, "Adejoke, I was wrong to judge you. You've shown strength that I didn't think possible. Your daughter is lucky to have a mother like you." Adejoke, though wary, accepted Alhaja's words with grace. Her voice was calm as she replied, "Thank you, Alhaja. All I want is to raise my child with love and dignity." Alhaja nodded, and though their relationship would never be one of friendship, there was a newfound respect between them. As time passed, Adejoke found her place in the community once more. The stigma of her unmarried motherhood slowly faded as people came to see her as a symbol of strength and resilience. She continued to raise her daughter with love and dignity, and she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the same courage that had carried her through the darkest days. In the end, Adejoke's story is one of redemption, of finding strength in the face of adversity, and of redefining what it means to be a mother. Her journey shows that love and determination can overcome even the most deeply ingrained prejudices, and that true strength lies not in avoiding challenges, but in facing them head-on.
Thank you for joining us on Adejoke's journey, a story of resilience, love, and the power of determination. Adejoke faced judgment and isolation, but she never gave up. She found strength within herself and in the support of those who truly cared for her. Her story reminds us that no matter how difficult life becomes, we can overcome the challenges with courage and grace. If you were moved by Adejoke's story and want to hear more tales that inspire and teach us valuable lessons, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. There are many more stories to tell, each one filled with life, love, and the complexities of our human experience.